Today we're going to be trying out these art supplies that were sent to me by Artillery Philippines. If you guys have seen my trying out acrylic gouache video, that one was also sent to me by them, but for now we are going to be trying out the rest of the art supplies that they sent. I'm surprised at how big this is. I was expecting everything to be sample sized, but this video really was not sponsored. But I can say that I do love them even before I started my channel. I think they're always good at answering questions about the art supplies and giving out information about them, which I think is just awesome. Also, I think they're very accommodating, which is when you're someone who lives in the province like I do, it's nice because I always have issues with my address not working when I'm ordering stuff, so they're really helpful with that too. This one is my Holbein acrylic gouache, which I've tried before. This is a very big set. It has this container which the lid doubles into a palette, and it also has really good brushes included in the set, so I think this whole thing is great overall. But if you want to see what I think about this set, just look at my trying out acrylic gouache video, which I think I'm going to be linking in the description. For today, we're going to be trying out everything else. There are two sets of Miya brushes in this box, and there's also a pad of Winsor and Newton cotman watercolor paper, and then there is this really interesting thing. It's the Miya moisturizing spray for their gouache. And then we have also the Miya acrylics, which I haven't tried before. I actually haven't tried any of these things, which I'm very excited about. But for now, for this video, I'm gonna leave out the acrylics first because I did try a different artwork with it, but the footage for that didn't work. I don't know what happened to it. So today I'm going to be showing you a different artworks that I did with my Miya gouache, which is okay because I'm also going to be using the Miya spray for it. So I hope you guys are okay with that. The first thing I want to talk about is that Miya spray because I'm interested to see what it does other than just water, because I have heard people say that water has worked for moisturizing their gouache. It says in the bottle that it not only hydrates the paints, but they also prevent mold growth, which is I don't think water does, and it does all this without changing the color, saturation, and adhesion of the paints. I don't know if water does all that, but I do know from reports of other people that they have mold growing in their gouache, which is very scary. So this might help with that. I won't be able to attest to that part for now, but for now I'm just going to be using it, and I will report back to you guys if it does have any mold on it. I do think it has a slight, very slight smell to it. It's very diluted, but it sort of reminds me of rubbing alcohol, a very light version of rubbing alcohol. I'm surprised that my paints haven't dried at all in their container even after months. And that's because I put a cling film over them before I put the lid on them, but it doesn't feel like they've been contaminated. I'll try to check on them after I've put the spray on, but for now we are going to be using these paints first. And I'm going to be painting on this paper, which is so smooth. I just love this paper. My pen just glides on top of it, which is really hard to find with watercolor paper. I have hot pressed watercolor paper, which is my Bauhaus watercolor paper. I can't really say this about all watercolor paper brands because I haven't tried that many, but for the Bauhaus hot pressed one, it's not as smooth as this one. This one just doesn't feel like there's any texture to it at all, which I just love for gouache. I'm not sure if I will love it that much for working with watercolors, but I do know that I love it for gouache. I used it before for my trying out acrylic gouache video, and I was so impressed with it. So you guys can already tell this is for now my favorite watercolor paper to work with gouache on. Funny story, I don't know if this was important, but I've avoided getting this exact thing because I've seen it before in Shopee, but I was really turned off by the texture of the cover because in the pictures the cover kind of looks like it's denim, which I really didn't like. I thought it would be hard to clean and would stain really easily. I also don't like spring bound sketchbooks that much in general, just because I think they get in the way sometimes. But this one, it's the spring part isn't that big, so it doesn't really take up that much space. And also it comes with all the other good things that comes with spring bound stuff, like it opens up completely, and I will still have all of my artworks in one place even when I'm working on one, unlike with my watercolor paper blocks, because you have to remove them. So I really like it in that sense. And I just really love how the paint glides on top of that very smooth paper, which is, I think, the main thing. It just really made the process much more enjoyable. There's only one other paper that I can compare it to that I have tried, which is my Canson XL, and I prefer this one so much more. It's smoother, and the spring one isn't as big as those ones, so it's not as bulky. I also haven't tried the Canson XL for gouache, so I might like them equally when I try Canson, but for now it just feels like I would like this one more. And now I want to talk about those brushes, because I'm using the flat brush set because I enjoy using flat brushes for gouache more. I will be using the round brushes for watercolors, maybe in my next watercolor video. But I just love this for gouache. It's very soft, the bristles are very soft, but then it also keeps its shape really well. The handles are also a lot shorter than their acrylic brushes, which was just so long. Doesn't really end up bothering you, but just the length of them is very noticeable. For these flat brushes, I don't think they would be that good for watercolors, just because their bristles aren't that long, and because it's not natural hair, it just doesn't hold that much water. Not only that, the bristles are just shorter than I'm used to, so they don't hold that much paint or water. I think for watercolor you might want to go with the round brushes anyway, which I prefer when I'm using with watercolors. I just like using round brushes better than flat brushes. But yeah, if you're working mainly with watercolors, you might as well just go with the round brushes. But what's great about these, because they don't hold that much water, it's that it makes them easier to clean, which is kind of hard when you're working with gouache. You might just rinse it with water and then still end up with some paint. That doesn't really happen that much with watercolors, because usually you're just working with more water than paints, and so they're easier to clean. So I just really think that every aspects of these brush sets, they make them easier for gouache, and their round brush just makes them easier for watercolors too. Another great thing about these brush sets is that they come in a lot of different sizes. So you will have those bigger brushes for filling out larger areas. And then it goes down to the smallest brush, which is a round brush, which just makes it perfect for details. And so now I think I'm just gonna take the time to talk about this painting, because it was so frustrating for me to do this. It looks very simple, it's not really that complicated of a piece, but this one took so long for me to do. But once I've collected all of my footage for this video, I realized that even though the whole thing took me like 2 hours to do, and it's a small painting, once I've deleted out the parts of me mixing the paints, I ended up with half an hour of footage. So about 3/4 of the time I spent mixing my paints, which I know it's kind of normal to spend a lot of time working out your mixes than actually painting, but I think this is just abnormally long. And I think the reason why is I haven't been using my Miya gouache in so long. I've been using with my Holbein gouache for a while, and with those I try to mix my own colors as much as I can, because they don't get muddy that easily. They tend to remain vibrant even through a lot of mixing. But with Miya gouache, because I was using the same techniques that I would normally with my Holbein, I ended up getting a lot of gray mixes and just very desaturated colors. which I would have known before I tried my Holbein gouache, because I've worked with Miya for a while before that, and so I knew before to use as many of the colors that they have, because I do have a lot more colors in my Miya set, and to just get the colors that are closest to what I want to use rather than try to mix my own colors. Because if you see from the start, I was working with a lot of the primary colors, which means that I was planning on just mixing a lot of these skin tones and a lot of these browns, but that just doesn't work with Miya gouache. All those colors just tend to get gray very easily, which I didn't really need to mix my own colors because I have a lot of colors from that set. And so it was just a very frustrating process, and it took a lot of time for me to realize where the problem was. But once I realized that, I tried to get a lot more colors from my set, the colors that are already close to the colors that I was thinking of, rather than just mixing them from primary colors. And so yeah, I hope you guys know what I mean. But this painting really did take a lot of time because of that. I just really need more practice with Miya gouache. It's because I usually have a different process for the different brands that I use, and it's not just with mediums, which is something that I've learned from working with so many different kinds of art supplies and brands. It's to take each brand as their own thing and to not have too many preconceptions about other brands when I'm using a different one. So I usually would have a different method when I'm working with a different brand, even when they're just the same medium, just because these things just have their own properties, and it takes a while to get to know them for me to eventually master just how I need to use them. But yeah, this is the painting that I ended up with. It doesn't look like it's finished, but I'm not planning on working on it anymore. I did end up liking it, like this piece, but the process to get there was frustrating. Having said that, I did enjoy all of these art supplies that were sent to me by Artillery. If you guys want to check them out, I will be linking their shopee shop in the description. I'm gonna be using the acrylics from Miya in a separate video, but for now that is it. Thank you guys for watching. I will be seeing you again soon.